Let's jump right into this explainer and demystify that incredible, highly orchestrated ballet of concrete and machines that we call an airport. We usually just think of airports as these giant waiting rooms before a vacation or maybe a business trip, right? But honestly, there's an entire hidden city operating just beyond the boarding gate. Today, we're going to look closely at the blueprints of the sky. We'll focus heavily on runway safety, complex airport operations, and the flight navigation tools that literally make modern aviation the safest transportation system in the world.
But before we map out the entire airport from terminal to tarmac, I've got a question for you. It's something that might have actually crossed your mind while staring out an airplane window during takeoff or landing. You look down, you see a massive stretch of asphalt, and bam! There are these giant, blocky painted numbers staring right back at you.
You've definitely seen them right at the edge of the runway, usually something like a 17 or a 35, and you kind of wonder what purpose they actually serve. While I can assure you they aren't just random labels, they definitely aren't parking spots, and they are for sure not a speed limit.
What's so fascinating is that this reveals a sort of secret language among pilots. These numbers act like a massive compass painted directly onto the Earth. They're called runway designators, and they indicate the exact magnetic direction of that specific runway. The trick? You just add a 0 to the end of the number. So if you see a 17, that means the runway is pointing at a heading of exactly 170 degrees. A 35, you're facing 350 degrees. It's an immediate, totally foolproof visual confirmation for flight navigation. It ensures a pilot is lining up with the exact correct strip of concrete way before they touch down or throttle up.
So, here's the agenda for our explainer. We'll cover anatomy of the airport, airport operations and ground control, decoding the runway, flight navigation and safety, and finally, the complete aircraft journey.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Anatomy of the Airport Beyond the Waiting Gates.
Think of the terminal as the human side of the blueprint. It's where we check in, get our tickets, weave through security, and finally collect our bags when we get back. But the real magic happens at the transitional point, that vital link moving us from the human world right into the aviation world. I'm talking about the passenger boarding bridge. It's that enclosed jet bridge connecting the terminal directly to the aircraft's door. It perfectly bridges the gap between a static, immovable building and a highly sophisticated flying machine parked right there at its designated stand.
Moving right along to Section 2, Airport Operations and Ground Control, or, as I like to call it, the Tarmac Ballet.
The crucial thing to understand here is that the apron, which is the aviation term for where aircraft park, is definitely not just a parking lot. It's a high-speed pit stop. If you really watch what goes on down there, it's a brilliant orchestration of operations and safety protocols, all firing off at the exact same time. In a remarkably short turnaround, ground crews are loading new passengers, unloading tons of heavy baggage, safely refueling the aircraft, and getting fresh catering on board. It is a rapid-fire environment, and precision and safety, they are absolutely paramount. Now, who's actually keeping all this organized? Overseeing everything, much like the conductors of a grand symphony, are the controllers sitting way up in the air traffic control, or ATC tower. From that elevated vantage point, they meticulously manage aircraft movements, both down on the ground and way up in the air. Their absolute #1 objective is to keep every single operation safe, maintaining strict separation between these multi-million-dollar jets as they weave across a massive, intricate grid of concrete.
That brings us to Section 3, Decoding the Runway, the Secret Markings.
When you really decode these markings, it becomes crystal clear how the runway itself is actively communicating with the pilot as they approach at literally hundreds of miles per hour. A runway is never just a blank canvas of asphalt. It has a very specific anatomy. First, you've got the center line. That's the dashed white line helping pilots stay perfectly aligned as they barrel down the strip. Then there's the aiming point. These are massive, solid white blocks giving pilots a clear visual target to aim for during descent. And finally, the touchdown zone. This strictly defines the absolute safest physical area for those heavy aircraft tires to actually make contact with the Earth. Every single drop of paint out there is dedicated entirely to runway safety.
But hey, before you even get near those landing marks, every plane on the ground has to obey the runway holding position. Think of this as the ultimate stop sign. It's a designated stop line where an aircraft must wait completely stationary until they get explicit spoken clearance from the ATC tower. No pilot crosses this line without permission. No exceptions. It's a critical safety checkpoint designed to absolutely prevent collisions and guarantee the runway is completely clear before any takeoff or landing happens.
All of this flows perfectly into Section 4, Flight Navigation and Safety, Guiding the Giants.
I absolutely love this next part. It's like an interactive puzzle for flight navigation.
It's called the Visual Glide Path Guidance System, or specifically the PAPI lights. Standing for Precision Approach Path Indicator, these lights sit right next to the runway and help pilots maintain the absolute perfect angle of descent. Here's how it works. If the pilot sees 4 white lights, they're way too high. 3 whites and 1 red, just slightly high. But if they see 2 red and 2 white lights, they hit the jackpot. They're on the perfect glide path. If more reds start showing up, they're dipping. And as the old aviation saying goes, if you see 4 reds, you are entirely too low. It's such a simple yet totally brilliant navigation tool.
It's also super important to understand the contrast between everyday operational infrastructure and the dedicated emergency safety nets out there. On one hand, you have the taxiway. These are basically the bright yellow-lined roads that aircraft use to move smoothly and safely between the runway and the parking aprons. On the other hand, you have the stopway. This is a vital safety area located just beyond the end of the actual runway. If a takeoff has to be aborted at the very last second, which does happen, the stopway provides a reinforced buffer to help a massive heavy jet safely come to a halt without overrunning into dangerous terrain.
And beyond the runway itself, the entire airport layout is fortified with behind-the-scenes safety operations. We're talking massive hangars and maintenance areas where specialized engineers meticulously inspect and service these incredible flying machines. You've also got the de-icing area. That's a critical zone where any dangerous snow or ice is chemically removed from the wings before a winter departure. Absolutely crucial for lift. And of course, the airport fire station. These emergency response teams are highly specialized and positioned to react to any incident on the airfield in literally a matter of minutes. Absolute safety is woven into every single square foot of the design.
Finally, let's bring it all home with Section 5, the complete aircraft journey, putting it together.
This sequence perfectly maps out your departure. As a passenger, your journey kicks off in the building of the terminal. You walk through that boarding bridge and step onto the aircraft parked on the apron. Once you're loaded, fueled, and pushed back, the aircraft navigates those yellow-lined roads of the taxiway. It slowly approaches the edge of the runway, but critically it stops at the holding point to await ATC clearance. Once the tower gives the green light, the aircraft aligns with the dashed center line on the runway, pushes the throttle, and lifts off into flight.
And upon return, the whole sequence just flawlessly reverses itself. Using those PAPI lights for perfect glide path navigation, the aircraft executes a safe landing right in the designated touchdown zone. It safely exits the runway, slowly maneuvering down the designated taxiway, and pulls precisely into its stand back on the active, buzzing apron. Finally, the boarding bridge connects, and you step right back into the terminal. It is this endless, beautifully choreographed looping cycle of precision.
So the next time you're stuck at an airport, maybe waiting out a delay, or just sipping coffee on a long layover, I want you to look out that big glass window. Take a look at those massive painted numbers on the runway. Watch the organized chaos of the apron, and look for those holding lines. Now that you understand the blueprints of the sky, the strict runway safety measures, and the incredible operations at play, ask yourself, how exactly do all of these brilliant interlocking puzzle pieces fit together every single day to create the safest transportation system on Earth? It's pretty mind-blowing when you really think about it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep looking closely at the world around you.